Hello and welcome back to Page Chewing Comics and Manga. This is Pick of the Week, the big episode number 50. This is a podcast where we talk about primarily newish single-issue comics. My name is Mike, and I'm back here once again with my friend Steve. Today is a special day because it is a milestone. This is a big number 50 for this podcast. And especially for Steve, you've done 50 episodes. I've not done as many as you, but I've definitely listened to prior to joining, and then have participated in almost half. So I think it's a momentous occasion. So I guess we're excited. We're going to do something a little different. We'll do the usual kind of talking about what we read, but also answer a few questions that were posed to us. I think we're going to do that at the end, right, Steve?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's I think it's a huge, I think you came on, I think you've done more than half, right? I feel like you've done all of them.
I think because
I did a couple.
Because I did some travel, I can't say half.
How dare you?
I know.
Living your life. What's wrong with you?
It's close. It's close. But yeah, I'm very fortunate to have been participating in this. It's really been fun.
Yeah, we are officially over the hill. The big 5-0. It's pretty cool.
Yes, I'm not too far from that in age myself. Just got a few years to go.
Sneaks up on you.
Oh yeah.
That's for sure.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah. Yeah, it's excited to get through our picks, and then we'll get to the questions. And just answer a couple of things. I had to make my list really quick, do a few top 10s and some other fun stuff. So thanks everyone who's supported the podcast and supported us and interacted with us and just been around and gave it a listen. Really appreciate it. I think if just one person listens every week, I'm happy. So if you're that person, then thank you. We appreciate you.
I have to say one thing, before I joined this experience, I remember you saying, I'm not so sure if I'm going to continue. And I heard you say it once, twice, maybe 3 times. And I was like, I really like this podcast because I was a listener. And, we had interacted on some other stuff, reading, like a reading group for R. Scott Baker. But I was fortunate that you said yes, so we're continuing this.
Yeah, I kind of just thought I'd always wanted to do a comic book podcast just for years and years and years. And I just thought, well, fuck it. Why not? I'll just do it and see what happens. So I didn't really have any expectations. I just got on every week and read a few books and jumped on. And the great thing about comics is it doesn't take that long to get through them. So it wasn't a huge time sink. It was easy to get through it. It was fun. I enjoyed it. And it was just kind of see what happens. We'll go to 10. But yeah, I'm glad it worked out the way it has.
Yeah. I think I will say, I think you said this before, but you said you wanted to do a comics podcast. I didn't even know until I started listening to you that I wanted to get back into comics. So you inspired me to do that.
I'm not sure if your wallet would agree with that, but
no, well, it's okay.
It's a whole nother topic.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. So yeah, speaking of the wallet, I think that's one of our considerations here is, they can add up. The books every week can add up, and you have to make those hard decisions. And we're not reading every book that's being published every week. We're reading the ones that appeal to us. If we had our own shop, then it'd be different, but we don't. So we're just kind of picking and choosing, trying to find ones that work for us. And I like that we can be a little ruthless sometimes. And just because it doesn't work for us doesn't mean it doesn't work for someone else. So not to say it's bad. It just, everyone has different opinions, and that's okay. So I hope you enjoy all the G.I. Joe titles, and just because I don't doesn't mean you won't either. You might love them. So that's what's great about it. Speaking of not great, we'll kick this off with one that you had read issue 1 of Falling in Love on the Path to Hell. You kind of were mixed on it. I think fair to say you're mixed.
No, I didn't continue with the series. So yeah.
So I picked up issue 2 just because I thought, well, let's see what happens here. So after the first issue, I give this one a shot, and it does pick up where it leaves off on issue 1. The two characters are in what apparently is hell. They meet up with other people there, and they start to navigate through what is potentially hell. And I like the artwork. I think it was solid. But our characters are trying to navigate through hell or through this purgatory, try to survive. And yeah, I couldn't really sink my teeth into it. There just wasn't enough to really become invested in the story or the characters. I really liked the first. There was a little bit in the first issue that I really connected with the characters. I thought they were really cool characters. I don't get the idea of bringing them together and having them fall in love. And I'm assuming that's what it is. I hope that's not what it is. I hope this is a metaphor for something else, because if that's what it is, it's a little silly. So I hope it's a metaphor for falling in love with something else. It's a play on words, just because it'd be a little goofy if these two characters end up falling in love, because they don't seem like the loving type. They seem like the killing type. So yeah, I'm not sure I'll be reading the third issue. I just, it was fine, but like I said, it just wasn't enough. There wasn't enough there to keep me going. But so the artwork is fine. I think the characters had some moments in the first issue. I like the idea of them going to hell, but it just not enough for me there to continue.
Yeah, I think that title is really on the nose. So you're like, kind of sets you up for, I don't know what it sets you up for, but for me, it was, I just remember I really liked the artwork. I thought they did, brain splattering and gore pretty well. If you're into that sort of thing.
Have that covered. Yeah.
Well, yes, I'm going to start off with something that a series I've been following for some time, and that is Ultimate Black Panther. This is number 5, and I think it came out actually a few weeks ago, so I'm a little bit behind here. Well, I don't know what it is this time, and I think I was just casually following the series, just curious to see where it's going. And then when I read this one, I just was like, I'm not feeling invested in any of these characters really at all. Okay, there's something that came up here about the anti-vibranium or whatever. I don't think that's a big spoiler, really. The artwork is fine. The writing is just not really like the writing is just seems very like formulaic. Just lines that you've seen over and over again. Like, this is not your destiny. You're not the chosen one. It's going to be different. Things like that. And I'm just like, I don't know. I was just really, I just kind of felt like it was like a Saturday morning cartoon or something. And I'm just like, it's got to have more to it. There's stakes in here, I guess, but I don't know what it is. I think I had a little bit higher expectations. I know that Ta-Nehisi Coates had written for this series, and I think I read one of those way back when, a couple years ago. But I'm just, I don't know. I think for the diehard fans, it's probably fine. It's interesting. It's doing different things, but I'm feeling like I'm not going to continue with the series. I'm just, I don't know. Just not feeling it.
I'm actually surprised you made it this far, honestly, because every week I was surprised to see it pop up again, just because it seemed like you were okay with it, but so yeah, you give it a fair shake.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. So the next one on my list is Death in the Family, Robin Lives, issue 1 of 4. This is an alternate history that Robin survives the attack by Joker from Death in the Family. And okay, so they're doing a few things here. So Robin survives. They do discuss Joker, kind of what makes Joker Joker. They do play with the idea of he is a damaged person. Something created him. Something made him the way he is. And they make a case for rehabilitation rather than retaliation. Rather than him being a mass murderer, he's just kind of someone who's gone through some bad experiences. So we should probably, not put him in a box or not be reductive and categorize him. And I don't know. I just, it's, yeah. So I get what they're doing. And they are playing on the damage that would have been done to Robin had he survived, the damage that would have been done to him and his psyche had he survived that attack. And would he be any different than Joker after surviving something so traumatic? How would that change someone? How would that alter the course of their life? Someone good who goes through something so terrible like that, what happens to them after? And I get what they're doing. They're drawing these parallels between the two characters. I think what it all comes down to, which I've never understood, is how, and I know a lot of people disagree with me, but how Batman just doesn't take the Joker out and save a lot of innocent lives rather than let him go every time, or not let him go, but he just manages to get out every time. And also how really stupid of an idea it is to have a kid as a sidekick, to put a kid in this position to potentially be brutally murdered by someone like Joker. So that's a whole nother topic. And they actually do address it in the book. So I was happy to see that, but that's another issue. So I like that I see what they're doing. I think it's like, okay, I get it, but not sure I'll be continuing this one.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't disagree with you. I mean, there's just like the logic would dictate that. Why would has there been a version of Batman? I know there's been all these different takes on the story where he's more ruthless and kind of kills these villains, or puts more stakes into it. Not that
maybe the Dark Knight. I don't know if he kills the Joker in Dark Knight,
okay.
But I think in the alternate reality, Injustice, Joker gets killed in that.
Okay.
Pretty satisfactory. It's pretty satisfying, but but that's like an alternate reality. But no, I can't remember any that he kills the Joker. But I'm sure there may be. There's 1,000 of them.
Okay, well, it's kind of staying in the DC world, and I know you covered this last time. I read Kneel Before Zod. I probably won't say anything new here. I do appreciate all of the different weird wild beasts or crazy alien characters that he comes across out in space. So I like inventiveness, and I like to see diversity of different, goofy, interesting. Maybe I shouldn't say goofy, but different humanoids, if you will. I'm not feeling super invested in any of the other characters except for maybe Zod, and we're just not really learning about a lot of other characters in this issue. I know we have in the past. Maybe that's on purpose. I'm wondering what it's building up for. I did actually think the resolution with the big bad here was really inventive and interesting, and there was like a cosmic horror element. So so I think it was all right. I'm still sticking with this one, seeing where it goes. I noticed that there was a big ad for another new, I don't know if you mentioned this or not, new shared multiverse thing event.
Oh,
now I lost it, but maybe it'll come to me. Anyway, I didn't find it, but there was also a kind of an interesting reveal at the end, but won't go into it.
Yeah. I'm conflicted on that, whether it's good or bad to have more of the DC universe involved in this story.
Yeah, I mean, it's right now it's kind of just him. So that was my point. I think we need to see some other character development, I think, in terms of story.
Yeah. The only thing I'm afraid of is that he'll get involved in the usual event or whatever and crossovers and kind of fall into that category. So I'm hoping that doesn't happen, but you're right. I think we do need something else to kind of liven the story up a little bit.
Yeah.
So the next one for me is Ice Cream Man number 40. This is Decompression in a Wreck Part 2. Part 1 was a fantastic issue. I think Prince does a few things with this one to kind of poke fun at people who complain about a decompression, like slowing a scene down in a comic book, kind of for dramatic effect. There's a reason for it, and the ways that you can use it. He weaves it into this really sad story about a car accident. So we see the other side of the accident, the truck that hits the family from issue 39, and I just think it's done pretty well. It's not done in a preachy way, but it's done in a way that's kind of educational, in a way to show you how it can be used. Decompression can be used in a book to make it more impactful, I guess you could say. So I did enjoy this issue overall. I think the artwork is fantastic. The characters in it didn't have it did have an emotional punch. It didn't have the same emotional punch as issue 39, but I think that's because it was missing the family dynamic. I think the family added more to it. You felt more. It seemed more. It felt deeper. It felt more emotional than the two drivers in the truck. But it was still. Don't get me wrong. It was still heartfelt and touching at the end. So, yeah, I think it was really good. I mean, really, really solid issue. One of my favorites of the week. It was very close to being my pick, but just got edged out by something we'll talk later.
I'm a little bit behind, so I was just paging through my copy. I haven't read it yet. I forgot that was this is part 2 of the decompression of the car wreck. So that artwork is really I think phenomenal. I was just looking through it. Just really something about it. I don't know what it is, but something about it.
Very bold lines, very clear. It's there's detail in it. I really like the detail and the kind of the characterizations. Very, very good.
Okay, so I'm up next once again here, and I've got I think this is a new series from Image Comics called Free Agents. So this is number 1, and this is by Kurt. There's names I'm not going to pronounce very well. Kurt Busiek and Fabian Nicheza. Those are the writers, with artwork by Stephen Mooney. And for issue number 1, I like to say the names for people. I didn't know these authors very well, but there's a cute little story about how they came up with this concept. And essentially, that actually comes at the end of this. This is a pretty big issue. I didn't count the pages, but it's easily over 40. So I kind of like that, what Image does, it seems to me, and not just Image, but sometimes these first issues are like kind of a bigger splash, and you can really sink your teeth into the story and potentially the world building. So this is essentially about these kind of interdimensional soldiers. I don't know where they actually come from, and they're introduced in a way that is I found very helpful, where they, as the panel introduces the character, they give a little kind of byline of who they are and they kind of describe that I think it's about 7 or 8 people. One is like a marksman, another is like a lycanthrope, like a wolfman. Another is kind of like the Thing from Fantastic Four, like he has a geological armor. And then there's others that I don't quite understand what they do yet, including somebody that is able to like interfere or disrupt electromagnetic waves. I won't go on and on, but it's just, I don't know, it's fine. It's like they're not necessarily superheroes. They're like these kind of soldiers, I guess. What was really jarring a little bit to me is, okay, we see them and they're like they're fighting some weird battle. We don't really know what's going on. And then cut to them being college students in, I think, New Jersey. Anyway, I was just like, okay. So there's some, it kind of reminded me of that first issue of Napalm Lullaby, where I'm just like, I don't really know what's going on here. That can be okay. It's a big, like I said, it's a big issue. So there was some things that I liked and other things I didn't like. And the ending was also a little bit different, where they reference two characters reference having a dream. So I was like, okay, so there is some events where kind of like a battle with this like mecha, soldier, and then they go, all of a sudden they're in some other part of the universe. Anyway, long story short, there's some reference to several characters all having the same dream at the end, which just confused me. I might need to go back and reread it. I don't usually do that. But I generally think it's okay. I'm curious. I'm optimistically curious about what's going to happen next.
Wow. I had kind of passed on that one, but hearing you describe it might have some potential.
It's okay. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot. They are taking a little bit of time to develop the characters. Anyway, we'll see. I think it's probably skewing to a more younger audience, which is initially, but then I thought, as I got into it, not too much. Yeah.
Oh, I'm intrigued now. So the next one for me was Kill All Immortals #1. So this is a book that focuses on a family, on the Oswald family, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. And it focuses on a character named Frey. Now, Frey is the daughter of this family. It's a very rich and powerful family. It's involved in politics and media and entertainment. Kind of the all-encompassing, they're very powerful, rich, they do what they want, mysterious. And this book is full of exposition. Everything is laid out for you pretty quickly. It explains everything. It doesn't leave a whole lot to imagination. It lays out pretty much who everyone is, what the families are, their position. And there is a surprise at the end. I guess a surprise. But I'm on the fence on this one. When I first finished it, I was kind of I don't think I'll continue, but the more I think about it, I like the artwork. I thought the artwork was well done. This is by Dark Horse too, by the way, but a lot of the rest of the issue was pretty predictable, which kind of a bummer. But there's potential here to be something maybe. I don't know why. I feel like I shouldn't give up on it yet. So I think I'll continue this one, even though I wasn't over the moon with the first issue.
I just realized I muted myself. So that reminds me of something we both read, which was Remote Space. There was a lot of exposition in that one. I don't know if you remembered it, but how does it compare in terms of the amount of exposition? If you remember that one.
I do. I think this even had more.
Oh wow!
Because it didn't. I think Remote Space was obviously more about kind of how the world was kind of this dystopian future, but I think this one breaks down all the different characters of family, the people the family's involved with. So yeah, it's a lot, and I say there's a lot. It doesn't. I know it sounds like a complaint. In a way, it was helpful because you do know kind of what everyone is, but it also removes some of the fun of learning, the fun of finding things out just through the story.
Yeah.
So in a way, it's kind of nice because you know a lot of things right off the bat, but it's also fun to find that out as the story unfolds.
Yeah, I think if it can be done well, and in some cases, it's like this is you have limited amount of pages in these issues. So anyway, so I guess I'm next going to be talking about my pick of the week. This was an easy pick for me, actually, and it's been a series has been a pick of the week before. I've had a few ups and downs, but overall, I'm really enjoying it. And this is The Holy Roller by Rick Remender and Andy Samberg. And I don't want to get too much in. I know you're reading this now, possibly. But I don't want to get too much into the plot, but one of the things that we learned about is that there's this evil kind of entity that has something to do with your phones and electronics. And I thought there was a really funny comment in here because it's having this impact on now the population in this. I don't remember if this is in New York, or I think it is. And the quote was, "This is the final evolution of social media, which is essentially like people hating each other." So I thought it was hilarious. I laughed out loud a couple times, and there's not much else that's doing that for me. So that gets big points for me. So there's a few things that are always like, kind of like a little bit over the top in here, possibly, for some people it does get maybe a little political. But the main character, the Holy Roller, he has some really good one-liners. There's a funny sequence with him and some potential new like sidekicks that I really appreciated. The big question I have: where does he hide those bowling balls? I just don't know. There's even a Gremlins 2 reference and a shocking ending. So there's only 2 issues left. I'm very curious to see what happens next, but I'm very happy with the series. I think, as I said, there's been a few ups and downs, but if something is making me laugh out loud, that's big for me.
That is pretty big. Laugh out loud. And I am a couple of issues into this, so I'm looking forward to catching up with you. Maybe I can catch up before the last issue.
Yeah, there's 2 more, so I think you definitely could.
Yeah, we'll do that. So from one end of the spectrum to the other, from laughing to not a whole lot of laughs in my pick, which is Get Fury 3. So the plot thickens with corruption and political maneuvering in this issue. You start to learn more about what's going on behind the scenes of the people who are doing bad things in the government, and how Fury and Castle fit into that whole system. How they're not sure how aware they are of what's going on, but there's a lot of dialogue about kind of plotting and planning. And I think Ennis just shines. He just excels at this type of kind of story. And it made me want to reread Punisher Max, because the Garth Ennis writing Frank Castle is there's just something's right about it. And the art by Jason Burrows, I'm a simp for Burrows and Ennis. I love their stuff. The artwork is very clean. They're both just at the top of their game in this book. It also made me want to reread Fury Max, which is another fantastic book. But yeah, the cover ups the back and forth, and also there's a scene with Castle in this issue that was just fantastic. Just a great action scene with him. It was very short, but it just made me want to, just like I said, just made me miss Punisher Max. So yeah, it's Get Fury 3. I'm loving this series. The issue 2 was a little bit off. I felt like the pacing was a little bit uneven after issue 1, but issue 3 is right back in it. And yeah, loving it.
I think issue 1 was a pick of the week for you. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I think, in terms of maybe storytelling, things can't always be full octane, or they need to slow down a little bit. So I'm hoping I'm glad that you're enjoying this series. I missed out on it so far.
Yeah, it's really great. And I think, yeah, and you're right. I think it's you notice it a lot more when you read month to month. If you're reading a graphic novel, like a trade with all of the issues collected, I'm sure it wouldn't feel as uneven because you're reading it all at once. But when you're waiting weeks between issues, you notice those things more. So it's a different reading experience when you read it as a collection later than it is month to month.
Yeah. So we have a few questions that were posed to us via the Page Chewing forum. I think we have time to cover a few of them. Yeah. We tried a little bit to prepare in advance. The first one is more of like a top 10 list, I guess. So, well, we had a couple questions. One was, what's the top 10 best manga read? And I have not read enough manga to participate in that one. But since we mostly talk about comics, that was the other question, is what are some of our favorite comics that we've read and I guess that we would recommend. Do you want to start us off with this one?
Sure, yeah. Well, I can't really handle the manga question either because I've read the entire run of Berserk and Uzumaki, and I have other books to read. I just haven't gotten to them yet that are sitting on the shelf right behind me. Well, no one can see me, but trust me when I say they're there. Yeah, but I can kick us off on top 10 favorite books. Start us off with that. And this is in no particular order. I just wrote them down as I was going, and I did notice there's a whole lot of Garth Ennis in my list. So yeah, heads up. So again, in no particular order, on my list I have Punisher Max, Crossed, which are both by Ennis. I think Punisher Max is just the quintessential Punisher story. It is just damn near flawless from start to finish, which I think his run was 60 or 70 episodes or issues. Wow. Just a great, so many great arcs, especially Punisher Born. There's so many great, and it also has kind of hints of humor of dark Garth Ennis humor, but still humor. Crossed, I think, is just the original Crossed is just one of my favorite survival horror stories. It is not for everyone. It's extreme. So if that's, it's not for the squeamish for sure. Next one is Stray Bullets. It's another really slice of life. I don't know if it's slice, but it's very focused on characters, and so many great characters in that book that I still think about years and years and years later. That just great book. If you love those types of crime, very character driven stories, check out Stray Bullets. The next one I think is one of the few superhero stories on my list, which is Invincible. This is by Kirkman. Another great, it poses lots of not fun, but lots of questions about superheroes, about being a hero, about what's right and what's wrong, what kind of decisions will we be faced with, and it gets really dark. And I think Invincible is one of the best. Next one is The Killer. It is another great series, and it does kind of dive into the psyche of someone who does this for a living. And our character, who is a hitman, isn't what you would expect a hitman to look like or to act like. He's kind of a dork, and he's very private. He's very, you wouldn't, if you saw him, you would never expect him to be anybody. That's just not what you would, you're on the lookout for. He's not Tom Cruise. He's just a random guy with glasses. So I think that's great, the way they kind of used him as in this role of this very dangerous, lethal person, but just you'd never, and that's the whole point. You never know, because he's a hired killer. Next one, I don't think you can have a list of top 10 without Watchmen on it. It's one of the best all time, books, period. It's time for a reread. The next one I have is The Killing Joke, Batman the Killing Joke. I think it's another one of those that you just have to have on a list. It's just one of the all-time best stories. I especially love the ending. It's it get another one that gets pretty dark. Next one is Fury Max. This is another Garth Ennis book. And this is another I don't know. It's just another one of those great stories. I never really cared about Fury, but this book, it kind of comes around full circle, and Fury, he's this, it really dives into him and his character and kind of like what makes him tick. And yeah, it actually gets a little sad, it didn't expect it to pull my heartstrings as much as it did, but it definitely does. The next one is Preacher, because Preacher is Preacher, another classic. And the last one, I needed a Brubaker book on my list. And the last one that stuck out to me was Where the Body Was. And we read it recently. It's still fresh. I don't want to have a recency bias, but I just couldn't have this list without Brubaker. There's also Fatale. There's a few other books that they've done that I really loved, but Where the Body Was, slice of life, crime, coming of age, another very touching, heart-wrenching story. So those are my 10.
Wow. That's a great list, Steve. Couple I have read and several I've read as well, but a few that I also have on my top 10 list. So,
oh, nice.
Or I do have one maybe honorable mention. That's I didn't put Watchmen on there because I thought you were going to mention it.
How dare you?
So I will start off with a Alan Moore comic that I really loved recently, and that's called Top 10. And what I like about it is that it subverts the comics genre. It's not, yes, it's in a fascinating world. The world building is unbelievable. And he just takes it to that next level with the world building, but also every single character has a kind of deep and detailed story. Like, yes, they have these superpowers or whatever, but that is not at all what's important about these characters. I was just so impressed. In addition, the artwork is for any comics or even animation geeks out there, because it is chock full of Easter eggs. Like you can spend extra time just paging through, looking through the panels. I just read it recently. I have been attempting to post something for page chewing. I have written up a blog post. I will figure out how to do WordPress, but I will post my commentary. So I had to mention that it's fresh because I read it, I think, just 3 or 4 months ago. There's a few others that I'm going to mention that are not considered, like, they're not the DC or Marvel world. They're more Fantagraphics. And I'm going to start with Daniel Clowes. I think I'm pronouncing it right. So I have the complete 8-ball, which is this box set of a series that he did, I think, mainly in the 90s. It's like 500 pages. It's a bunch of different stories and very well developed. He does all of the artwork and the writing. The writing is really, it can be very sad. It can be hilarious. His artwork is, I think, just does something for me that I can't really describe. I think he paints everything with a paintbrush. But within that series is Ghost World, which was can be read as a standalone. It was also a film that I think is a really good film. The next one I have is like a huge series. It's very complicated, and that's Love and Rockets by Los Bros Hernandez. In particular, I've read all of Gilbert Hernandez's work, and there's one volume called Human Diastrophism, I believe, that I think about often. I read it like years ago. He depicts a Central American community that has kind of like magical realism, I guess, which I know some people don't like the term. I don't care, but it's got, like people, there's like ghosts, but the characters are really interesting, and we learn about their lives and how there's, rumors that, kind of emerge about different people, and like there's kids and there's adults, and they have these lives, and they age, and some people die, and some people gain weight or whatever. It's really fascinating. I know that's in a big, I think some people like consider it kind of like literature or something, that series. So the next one I'll say, these are like really just the big favorites, and now of late in particular. But I'll also mention Why the Last Man, especially the early volumes. I think that's Brian K. Vaughan, who also did Saga. I just got the big book one of Saga, but I haven't read it yet. And I don't know. It's just something about it it's a really interesting concept. I won't go into it. I think it's probably been covered to death by a lot of people. But I like the main character. I think is deeply flawed and funny, and is dealing with a world of women, and I think it's handled pretty well.
Yeah.
And then I also have Invincible up there, Steve. I'm not going to say what you said. I will just add that he does things that make, all of a sudden it's not a typical comic book anymore. All of a sudden it's like a science fiction novel or series. He zigs when you think he's going to zag. I think Kirkman is really great. I've read some other stuff by him as well. And then I'm going to add Sacrificers, which is an ongoing series by Rick Remender. And we really love the artwork by Fiumara. And I forgot his first name. It may be Max or Matt. And then I have, I think, two more. One is I Kill Giants by Joe Kelly. Oh. It's very sweet. It's a girl dealing with, she has a troubled past, or she's like, loves, Dungeons and Dragons, and believes that they're giants. And, it's a kind of she has this imaginary world, and I really appreciate that one. I read it, I think, last year. And I think maybe the last one I have is, the series is called Mog and Owl, and it's I believe it's published now by Fantagraphics. This is by Simon Hanselman. He does all the artwork, all the writing. It's about a depressed, drug-addled witch who has a pet cat that talks, and they also have a friend named Owl. It's very simple artwork. It's depressing. It can get a little dark. It's dark humor. And for whatever reason, I read like 3 or 4 volumes like back to back. And it was that period in my life, maybe during COVID or something. I don't know what was going on, but it can really get dark as well. And maybe not for everybody. I think I covered all of them. I feel like I talked a long time, but I think those are all of them. There was one honorable mention which was Stray Bullets. I just started
Hmm.
reading that, but it's just phenomenal. I'm so glad you recommended it. And then I don't think I don't believe I finished it for some reason, but for people that just want something totally different, check out Jimmy Corrigan or anything by Chris Ware. It's just wild. Like his stuff is just so different. Like it looks like it's done by a computer, but I don't think anything is. He's very meticulous. He can have like the book is not big. The book that I have, he can have like 30 panels on a page. So it's like this tiny little stuff. It's just sometimes, but there can be a lot of variation. And the writing is just out there. It's also a little bit depressive, and that's somewhat of a theme. Like I feel like anyway, some of these things are like funny or kind of dealing with people going through tough situations or whatever, but also a lot of other gems that I think I would I think anybody could check out. I'm curious to check out what you just listed too.
Oh, nice. Yeah. I now have my list is growing. I also want to, I forgot as you were, I thought of another one that I should have had on my list, which is Nameless. It's another great cosmic science fiction horror. It's a book you can read over and over again. And there's so many details. There's so many things that are hidden and yeah, it's just fantastic. So Nameless is another one I should have had on my list, but I just thought of it now. So,
who's the author of that one?
I believe it was Warren Ellis.
Okay. I think he did Transmetropolitan, which I think I have 6 of the first 6 volumes. I heard that series is good too, but I haven't got to it yet.
It's not correct. It was Grant Morrison.
Oops.
Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
I do get names confused.
Yeah, very, very good though. Yeah, very good.
Awesome.
And then the next one was sorry.
Oh, no, you go ahead. There was another question. Do you want to read it this time?
Yeah, so it was our top 10 that we've read during the podcast. Is that the next one?
Yes, we can do that. I might just kick us off here, and I won't give a long spiel because we've already covered it. I don't know if I've numbered them as 10, but these were some of the top ones for me. And I'll just rattle them off here and in no particular order. And so one of them is Red Light by Sarah Cho. I think we both liked. And then Somna by Tula Lotte and Becky Cloonan. Both are Eisner Award winners, I just realized. I'm going to also put Death Ratioed, which was a one-shot by, I believe, Mark Russell. I'm going to add Holy Roller. I'm enjoying that. I talked about it today. I'm going to also include Deviant by James Tinian III. And maybe last but not least is Under Heist.
Oh, nice.
By the Lathams. David and Maria, the couple, I believe they're a couple, husband and wife team. And then I think I didn't read all of the Swan songs, but I would love to put it in there for the ones that I read. I really, really liked, and I know it was top for you too. So I didn't want to steal your thunder. But.
No, I think we have a lot of ones that crossed over. So for mine, my top 10, no particular order. The Sacrificers. I think I know it was in your list. Your other top 10. Somna, Swan Songs, Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees, which is another great series. Batman Gargoyle of Gotham made my list. Crave, I thought Crave did. So it wasn't perfect, but I think it was very thought provoking in what it did accomplish. Under Heist, like you mentioned, with the Lanthams, can't really go wrong with the Lanthams. Red Light, And I kind of cheated on my last two because I have the six fingers and the left hand, because I think the way that those two books work together, and I thought it was just fantastic. I just loved it. So those are my top 10.
Awesome. We have a few other bigger kind of questions, not top 10 lists per se. I'm going to just throw one of them out there, Steve, and maybe you can kick us off with your answer. But the question is, what makes comics or manga unique? In a novel, we discuss prose or characters, story theming, or maybe even world building. But what is it for comics and manga that makes for a great reading experience for you?
Yeah, I just want to thank Paramita for her questions as usual. She's fantastic. So I think it's a visual medium. A lot of that you read, a lot of what you would read in a novel, you see on the page. So it's almost like a screenplay, because a lot of it is filled in. You fill in a lot of the blanks visually that you don't have to fill in with words and with descriptions. And so I think that's what makes it unique, is the way that you can use art to tell the story, and to use the art to supplement the words and the dialogue, and use the characterizations or the facial expressions or the backgrounds or body language or whatever it may be to tell the story, to give the reader a feeling, or have them kind of feel like they're there watching the story unfold instead of imagining it in their mind when you're reading a novel. So I think that's how it's just the visual nature of comics and manga, just the way that the art does a lot of the work to tell the story.
Yeah. I would say that the world building, because that was mentioned here, is, and I have to thank Paramita as well. I forgot to mention her name when I kicked off the questions. We really appreciate her participation. When you talk about world building, I feel like that's not that can be an element to comics. It's not something we think about as often, maybe. So I thought that was really interesting. I think characters are very important to me. They're not always as important. Sometimes it's about action. Sometimes it's about, just making jokes. There's a lot of different things you can do with this medium, really. I talked about a few things that really are, could be like more slice of life even. So I find the medium to be, it works the best when both the visual and the writing come together, and they can complement each other. So I think that's, and a lot of things that you said, Steve, are really important. Like, it's sometimes there's something about, we just mentioned it earlier, sometimes there's something about the artwork that just dazzles you. Mm-hmm. And we're not artists, so we can't say, like, we can't describe the composition very well, but maybe we'll get better at it. But anyway, it's I really appreciated it. It's kind of like storyboarding or what have you.
It's funny what you mentioned, when the artist and the writer work together, they collaborate. There's times when you can just tell when they're not on the same page. So you get a feeling when they're not in sync with each other. And there's so many things you can do with art. I mean, you look at so many things you could do with the page layout, or with the way that you incorporate certain shapes or angles, or because there's so many deep dives into artwork, into the use of certain angles or colors, or you can also use colors to elicit emotion, to elicit feelings in the reader. So there's so much you can do with artwork, with the visual aspect of the storytelling.
Yeah. We didn't mention the lettering as well. Sometimes the lettering can add something Yeah, I mean sometimes the art is very simplistic, and that's maybe for a reason. And then there's other cases where you just need to take your time. You really need to take your time and appreciate what somebody put into, the artwork. So, and I can't say one is better than the other. So I don't know if we wanted to cover any other questions, or we have maybe time for one more, or otherwise.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yeah, pick one.
This is one that I think you can answer maybe better than me. So in terms of adaptations for comics and manga, and for me, I've seen some anime, but maybe haven't read the manga version. Is it easier to execute in terms of animation or animation versus live action? And with animation, you can. It depends on, I guess, the look. I guess I'm starting off with answering the question a little bit, but we were talking earlier with animation. You can kind of mimic. I think you were saying earlier the look of what's in the comic or manga.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that'd be the biggest thing is you instead of casting people to play certain roles, especially with comics, you already have a artwork to refer to, what people look like or what their build is, how tall they are, how short they are, all the different aspects of their physical appearance. And you'd have to cast someone in that role who is capable of playing the role and also kind of fits the bill for the physical portion of it too. But with that in animation, you can make it whatever you want. So a lot less constraints there.
Mm-hmm. I will say that there's one instance that's relatively recent. And, we just talked about it. It's the Invincible animated series. I think it's phenomenal. This is going to sound terrible. I think it's a little bit better than the graphic novel, but they're not that far into it. There's some really good voice acting. They have a phenomenal cast of voice acting, and not just the big names. There's a few relatively bigger names in there. But it is possible they're taking their time too. They're not like summarizing everything and mushing everything together. But so I'm appreciating it. I'm surprised. It made me actually, I have to say, I started watching the animated series and then I just blazed through the comics after season 1. They don't get that far into it, but to me that worked really well.
I think any adaptation benefits from the chance to fix things that were wrong. In retrospect, you go back and you can kind of have another run through the story and clean things up, or fix things, or tighten things up, or make some changes to the story that you may not have noticed the first time. Especially because you have time to reflect on it and see it again, and so you have another chance to kind of make things to perfect it.
Have you seen the Berserk anime by any chance? No,
I haven't.
Neither.
No.
I don't know where to find it. Maybe Crunchyroll or something.
Maybe. I'm not sure what it would be.
Yeah, so I think that about covers the additional questions and our top 10 lists. So I'm going to hand it back to you, Steve, to do the outro. And I think take it away from here.
How cool is it we got to 50? That's so cool. So that's it for us this week. Thank you to Paramita, who submitted some questions for us. Really appreciate it. Thanks for everyone who supported the podcast. And if this is your first time listening, thanks for listening. Hope you come back next week and hear more. We are reading The Swamp Thing by Alan Moore. We're doing volume 2 later. We have already done volume 1. We have lots of other stuff planned. So looking forward to the future and hope you had a great week. And if you didn't, the next week will be better. We'll talk to everyone very soon. Thanks again for listening and have a great week.
Goodbye.